Hello and welcome to this exploring session, which it is very difficult for us to say the title of. We've just been discussing how we should pronounce the various names of the various people in it, and also the dangers of using autocorrect when trying to type out the title of this particular play. In full, it is the history of the two valiant knights, Sir Clyomon, Knight of the Golden Shield, son to the King of Denmark, and Clamydes the White Knight, son to the King of Suavia, as it hath been sundry times acted by Her Majesty's players, etc., etc. So it's got quite a long title. It's usually known as Clyomon and Clamydes, but of course if you type it into any search engine, or as I tried to do the other day when trying to look for other editions into Amazon, it came back as, did you mean Clyomon and Chlamydia? This is a brand of smoking toothpaste and a sexually transmitted disease. So you may notice that there are some issues here with how we would brand this play in the future. And one of the running thoughts that we will have here is how to sell this play as something that has nothing to do with cancer and or any kind of unfortunate discharge. So that's where we're going today. We're starting, as we mean to go on, with this play written probably sometime in the 1570s, but which survives into the 1590s and seems to have been picked up by the Queen's Men Company later in its life. And it's interesting to think about how the play is structured across time and how it may have ended up as it is, and for us to make decisions about what we want to do with it. To join us on this journey, we have this crack team of people who've read many a play with us oft. So today, reading Juliana is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian. I'm in Yorkshire.
Reading Clamydes today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
And reading Clyomon today is...
Aliki Chapple. I'm an actor, theatre maker and translator living in Lancashire.
Reading The King of Suavia today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk, neither an actor nor an academic.
Reading Shift today is...
Alexandra, gleefully uninformed and enthusiastic.
Reading the Prologue and the conflated First and Second Lord is...
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. I'm an English teacher living in the Northwest United States.
And reading Alexander the Great today is...
I'm Lois Potter. I used to teach English literature and I live in London.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I will be attempting to just keep everything moving forward in some sort of fashion. We're looking at 5 scenes of the play. So today we're going to be doing this over 4 sessions. It's quite a long play, but maybe it moves along super fast. So we're going to find out how it goes super slow. So we're going to start off with the prologue. So prologue in your own time.
As lately lifting up the leaves of worthy writers' works, wherein the noble acts and deeds of many hidden lurks, our author, he hath found the glass of glory shining bright, wherein their lives are to be seen, which honor did delight, to be a lantern unto those which daily do desire Apollo's garland by desert, in time for to aspire. Wherein the froward chances oft of fortune you shall see, wherein the cheerful countenance of good successes be, wherein true lovers findeth joy with hugy heaps of care, wherein, as well as famous facts, ignominious placed are, wherein the just reward of both is manifestly shown, that virtue from the root of vice might openly be known. And doubting not, right courteous all, in your accustomed wont and gentle ears, our author he is pressed to be the brunt of babblers' tongues, to whom he thinks, as frustrate all his toil, as pearls cast to filthy swine, which in the mire doth moil. Well, what he hath done for your delight, he gave not me in charge, the actors come, who shall express the same to you at large.
And thus ends what a rather spruntly little prologue that is. I rather like that. It doesn't really. It does address some issues in the play, but it's one of those general ones of, you know, some people aren't going to like it. You know, casting you know, his pearls to swai. You know, he's he's slightly insulting, at least what some of the audience presumably, but he's done it in a really lovely, light kind of way. I also love the fact it's not really my problem. The actors are coming on in a moment. It's just suggests who the prologue is. It's an interesting question, removing themselves from the rest of the actorly crew. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, the praise here, the last bit could be, it's nothing to do with me, Gov. I was just given this script.
Yeah. I'm just reading the prologue off a bit of paper. It's nothing to do with me. Though he's separating himself from the author, he's not saying it, he is the author, because he does say our author. Other little thoughts about this opening?
The prologue sort of strike me as the early modern equivalent of house lights to half, and everybody settle down, we're going to start now. That if you don't hear the prologue, you're not really missing much most of the time.
It's not a data sharing prologue. It's not setting up the plot. It may be vaguely setting up theme, because it's talking about virtue and vice. But it's not really going anywhere in that sense. Other thoughts?
It's not what you might call what they sometimes call, I think, a disabling speech. That is, he isn't saying our poor unworthy actors are. You've been very kind to our author. He's really doing his best. It's not one of those speeches.
Yeah, they're not lowering expectations, really, are they? They're saying if you don't enjoy it, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Or it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yes.
The modesty topos is what I've heard that called.
The modesty topos. Oh, well, you see, I take it from the speech that the speaker gives on being chosen, the Speaker of the House of Commons. He gives a disabling speech saying how unworthy he is of the honour. But yeah, modesty topos sounds much more literary.
And it's still, you know, it still happens today. You know, if a show, for example, is in first previews and the director comes out in front of the tabs before and says, "Well, look, we're not quite ready, guys. Really sorry. This is more a sort of open tech. There's free wine in the bar at the interval." It still happens today. Any more before we actually get into the play proper? I collect prologues, that's why I like to stop on them. I do like that. Okay, let's get into the play proper. Scene 1, and the original text does not come with any helpful stage numberings, scene numberings, so we have added them in artificially, and we may find that I'm wrong in places, so that's always going to be fun as we go, but I'm calling this Scene 1. Enter Clamydes.
As to I'm sorry if you can, I apologize if you can hear a dog panting heavily in the background.
I don't see that in my text.
No, sorry.
Famous opening lines. I apologise if you can hear a dog panting.
I'm trying to get him to sit down, but he's just...
I can't hear a thing. So.
You'll have to edit that out. Sorry.
Oh no, that's staying in. That's so Okay, so Clyomon enters onto a stage in a formally dramatic fashion.
As to the weary wandering wights, whom waltering waves environ, no greater joy of joys may be, than when from out the ocean they may behold the altitude of billows to abate, for to observe the longitude of seas in former rate. And having then the latitude of sea room for to pass, their joy is greater through the grief than erst before it was. So likewise I, Clymides, Prince of Suavia, noble soil, bringing my bark to Denmark here to bide the bitter broil, and beating blows of billows high, while raging storms did last. My griefs was greater than might be, but tempests overpast. Such gentle calms ensued hath, as makes my joys more. Through terror of the former fear than erst it was before. So that I sit in safety as seaman under shrouds when he perceives the storms be past, through vanquishing of clouds. For why the doubtful care that drave me off in danger to prevail is dashed through bearing lesser brain and keeping under sail, so that I have, through travel long, at last possessed the place, whereas my bark in harbour safe doth pleasure's great embrace, and hath such licence limited as heart can seem to ask, to go and come of custom free, or any other task. I mean by Juliana she, that blaze of beauty's breeding, and for her noble gifts of grace, all other dames exceeding, she hath from bondage set me free, and freed, yet still bound to her above all other dames that live upon the ground. For had she not been merciful, my ship had rushed on rocks, and so decayed amid the storms, through force of clubbish knocks. But when she saw the danger great, where subject I did stand, in bringing of my silly bark full fraught from out my land, she, like a meek and modest dame, what should I else say more, did me permit, with full consent, to land upon her shore. Upon true promise that I would here faithful still remain, and that perform which she had vowed, for those that should obtain her princely person to possess, which thing to know I stay, and then adventurously for her to pass upon my way. Lo, where she comes! Ah, peerless dame, my Juliana dear!
Enter Juliana with a white shield.
My Clamydes, of truth, Sir Prince, to make you stay thus here, I proffer too much injury. That's doubtless on my part, but let it no occasion give to breed within your heart mistrust that I should forge or feign with you, my love, in aught.
No, lady, touching you in me doth lodge no such a thought, but thanks for your great courtesy, that would so friendly here in midst of misery receive a foreign stranger mere. But lady, say, what is your will, that it I may perstand?
Sir Prince, upon a vow who spouseth me must needsly take in hand the flying serpent for to slay, which in the forest is, that of strange marvels beareth name, which serpent doth not miss, by daily use from every coast that is adjacent there, to fetch a virgin, maid or wife, or else some lady fair, to feed his hungry paunch withal, if case he can then take. His nature low it only is of women spoil to make, which thing no doubt did daunt me much, and made me vow indeed, who should espouse me for his wife, should bring to me his head, whereto my father willingly did give his like consent. Lo, Sir Clamydes, now you know what is my whole intent, and if you will, as I have said, for me this travail take, that I am yours with heart and mind, your full account do make.
Ah, lady, if case these travels should surmount the travel whereby came unto the worthies of the world such noble bruit and fame, yea, though the dangers should surpass stout Hercules his toil, who, fearing naught, the dogged fiend stern Cerberus did foil. Take here my hand, if life and limb the living gods do lend, to purchase thee, the dearest drop of blood my heart shall spend. And therefore, lady, link with me thy loyal heart for aye. For I am thine, till fates untwine of vital life the stay. Protesting here, if gods assist, the serpent for to kill.
Then shalt thou of all women win the heart and great goodwill, and me possess for spoused wife, who in election am to have the crown of Denmark here, as heir unto the same. For why? No children hath my sire besides me, but one other, and he indeed is heir before, for that he is my brother. And Clyomon, so hight his name, but where he doth remain unto my parents is unknown. For once he did obtain their good wills for to go abroad a while to spend his days, in purchasing through active deeds both honour, laud, and praise, whereby he might deserve to have the order of a knight. But this omitting, unto thee, Clamydes, here I plight my faith and troth, if what is said by me thou dost perform.
If not, be sure, O lady, with my life I never will return.
Then, as thou seemst in thine attire a virgin's knight to be, take thou this shield likewise of white, and bear thy name by me, the White Knight of the silver shield, to elevate thy praise.
O lady, as your pleasure is, I shall at all assays endeavour my good will to win. If Mars do send me might, such honour as your grace with joy shall welcome home your knight.
Then farewell, my dear Clamydes, the gods direct thy way, and grant that with the serpent's head behold thy face I may.
You shall not need to doubt thereof, O faithful dame so true, and humbly kissing here thy hand, I beg thy grace, adieu. Oh, happy time and blissful day, wherein by fate I find such friendly favours as is food to feed both heart and mind. To Suavia soil I swiftly will prepare my footsteps right, there of my father to receive the order of a knight, and afterwards address myself in hope of honour's crown, both tiger fell and monster fierce, by dint for to drive down the flying serpent soon shall feel how boldly I dare vaunt me. And if that Hydra's head she had, yet dread should never daunt me. If murdering Minotaur a man might count this ugly beast, yet for to win a lady such, I do account it least of travel's toil to take in hand, and therefore farewell care. For hope of honour sends me forth mongst warlike wights to share.
And so ends the first scene, and wasn't that fun? There's nothing like 14ers to suddenly turn it into something light, I think. There seems to be something about the way that verse bounces along that really it has a lovely sort of fairy tale quality to this, which is really enjoyable. I'm loving this so far. Lois.
Yes, we've also discovered that even the author doesn't know how to scan the hero's name, because it sometimes sounds better as Clamydes and sometimes as Clamydes.
There were a few points when we first started, I was going, is this what? And I was literally doing, because every so often there seems to be slightly out.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it's gone through the filter of the Queen's Ben, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, because that seems to be random editing seems to occur all over the place. But yeah, flying serpents. We're going to get flying serpents, people.
Yay!
Hopefully. Who knows? It's only seen one. Helen.
That first speech of Clamydes, whatever, is effectively Peele saying, hey, Mom, it's me, because it's the big, long, seagoing metaphor description.
I should point out for the record that Peele is not a particularly firm attribution, though.
No.
You know, it has been thrown to Peele, but otherwise it is unattributed. But you're right. It is. If there's any bit in this play which does feel like it's by Peele, it's probably that bit, because he doesn't half love his sea metaphors, doesn't he?
Oh, and they are long, and they involve all sorts of technical stuff.
Mm.
No, he's a good guy with his maritime metaphors. I did love the way the Juliana did me permit with full consent to land upon her shore. I was just wondering exactly where the metaphor was going at that stage. But she's a meek and modest dame. I think it's probably no more than.
I mean, you say that. I mean, there's interesting things about her. You know, this is what my father insists is the process of matrimony. I also love the way she just throws in passing. You know, you will be on the road to the king, the crown of Denmark, apart from my brother, obviously. But apart from him,
and we don't know where he is.
We don't know where he is. Suddenly, let me just feed in the B plot, or the A plot, depending on your point of view. Alan.
I just dread to think what a Freudian would make of some of that. I mean, we've had an allusion to it anyway, but you could read some of that, the first speeches from both the two principals in a fairly erotic fashion, if one chose to.
Oh yes,
I think the thing always to resist, certainly making the assumption with a first reading where we're reading it cold, is that just because it's, you know, bouncing 14ers, that there isn't more depth going on to this than it looks on the surface. I mean, it is fun. It has that fairy tale quality because it's basically a fairy tale plot so far. But that doesn't mean there isn't legs working underneath between these two characters that can be played with you know, righteousness and you know, intent and things. Of course, I could be wrong. It could just be entirely surface. Go to Alexandra first.
I just wanted to comment on exactly that. I always feel with these plays that if there is a double entendre, then that was probably put there in place sort of on purpose. Or if there's a way of interpreting things, you know, in a way that might get a little low laugh. That's probably there on purpose, and you know, there might be people who catch it and might be people who don't, perhaps, or you know, it might be open to interpretation. But I always find that these sort of things it's nice to think of them as when you're actually looking at it directorially. It's nice to think of them as kind of, should we let that happen? Should we kind of, you know, not push it as a joke necessarily, but kind of go, let's not pretend that doesn't exist. You know, let's let our audience figure it out or not.
Well, they seem to like each other, so I don't see you know, it's not like this is a formal setup with the king saying, "And now, my daughter, you must go to win her hand." She's telling him what the deal is, so you've got to assume that she's quite keen for this all to turn out well. Helen.
Yeah, this is my fault. I had to, no, when I was editing this, I've done an awful lot of travels that should have been travails. Because they're indistinguishable in the original text. And I mean, I corrected one, but the others, as I was reading, I spotted it.
Excellent. Now I'll make a note for next time. Let's see if we can hunt some of those out.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, they may be travel, but I think they're travail.
It's always a problem with a play where there is some travelling going on. Lynn, was that a wave?
Yes, yes. So I want to go back a moment and respond to Alan's comment about the Freudian readings here. The fairy tale genre and Freudian readings are by no means mutually exclusive at all. I mean, there is a whole school of thought that probably the most famous exponent is Bruno Bettelheim in The Uses of Enchantment. That fairy tales are deeply, deeply Freudian. And anytime something is red, it symbolizes blood and possibly menstrual blood. And, you know, if a thing's a phallic symbol, if it's longer than it is wide. So yeah, because it seems like a fairy tale, that's actually maybe militates to Freudian readings rather than against it.
Yeah, Sarah, reading Knights number 1.
Yes.
Any thoughts your end from you know, what your side of the deal? Because you get that sort of long opening speech about, you know, coming in and then you know, reacting to Juliana, etc. I mean, anything come up your end, as it were?
As it were. I have to confess, for the first half of that speech, I was somewhat struggling with my own fiendish Cerberus here. So I wasn't fully paying attention to what I was saying. But I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because when you've got heptameter, I'm sure he's meant to be a really genuinely noble, authentically virtuous chap, but I find it very difficult to not play up the comedy. He seems to me to be, you know, terribly genuine and really enthusiastic, and with that bouncy 14er rhythm, I mean, it's a joy actually to play. It's really good fun, but I don't honestly know if he's actually meant to be as much fun as I'm making him. Possibly he isn't, but I just decided to romp away with him because he's just so noble.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't have a minor speech impediment, because otherwise that first line he says would be incredibly difficult to say.
That was like, what is going on here?
It's your pucker alliterative opener, isn't it?
That author
it really
was going
is.
for it.
It's making a statement about what this play is trying to do. You know, that's not an accident to come out doing weary, wandering wights whom watering waves in Wyron.
Jonathan Wass, where are you?
Yes. Alan.
I'm just wondering whether he's actually Tim Nice but dim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, and we've talked about melodrama conventions as well, about, you know, melodrama not as an abusive term, but, you know, as a thing where your character absolutely goes for one intention, absolutely the moment, and then the moment they change their intention, they go absolutely for it, and it's everything changes very suddenly without that sort of process that you might get in a more naturalistic thing. And I'm wondering whether that's an approach for this. I don't know yet. We've only done one scene. Sarah?
Reading him, he certainly didn't seem like he had much process. But hey, maybe I'll be proved wrong. Maybe he's deep and complex and Bettelheimish.
Well, that is what we found out so far about the White Knight of the Silver Shield. Let us now go on to a different coloured shield and see what happens as we go into scene 2. Enter Sir Clyomon, Knight of the Golden Shield, son to the King of Denmark, as mentioned in the previous scene, with subtle shift. Put my teeth back in. Subtle shift the vice, booted.
Come on, good fellow, follow me, that I may understand of whence thou art, thus travelling here in a foreign land. Come, why dost thou not leave loitering there and follow after me?
I am in, and shall please you.
In? Why, where art thou in?
Faith, in a dirty ditch with a woman so bewrayed as 'tis pity to see.
Ah, well, I see thou art a merry companion. I shall like better of thy company. But I pray thee, come away.
If I get out, one of my legs, as fast as I may. Lo! Ah, my buttock, the very foundation thereof doth break. No, once again, I am as fast as though I had frozen here a week.
Stage direction here. Let him slip onto the stage backwards as though he had pulled his leg out of the mire, one boot off, and rise up again to run in again.
What? How now? Whither runnest thou? Art thou foolish in thy mind?
But to fetch one of my legs, an she'll please, that I have left in the mire behind.
One of thy legs? Look, man, both thy legs thou hast. 'Tis by one of thy boots thou hast lost. Thy labour thou dost waste.
But one of my boots? Jeez, I had such a wrench with the fall that I assure you I did think one of my legs had gone with all.
Well, let that pass. Tell me what thou art, and what is thy name? And from whence thou camest, and whither thou journey thou dost frame, that I have met thee by the way, thus travelling in this sort.
What you have requested, and she'll please, I am able to report. What I am, by my nature, each wight shall perceive that frequenteth my company by the learning I have. I am the son of Apollo, and from his high seat I came, but whither I go it skills not. For knowledge is my name, and whoso hath knowledge, what needs he to care which way the wind blow, his way to prepare?
And art thou knowledge? Of troth, I am glad that I have met with thee.
I am knowledge, and have as good skill in a woman as any man whatsoe'er he be. For this I am certain of. Let me but lie with her all night, and I'll tell you in the morning whether she is maid, wife, or sprite. And as for other matters, speaking of languishes or any other thing, I am able to serve, and shall please, and 'twere great Alexander the King.
Of troth, then, for thy excellency, I will thee gladly entertain, if in case that with me thou wilt promise to remain.
Nay, and shall please ye, I am like to a woman. Say nay, and take it. When a gentleman proffers entertainment, I were a fool to forsake it.
Well, knowledge, then, since thou art content my servant to be, and endued with noble qualities, thy personage I see, thou having perfect knowledge how thyself to behave, I will send thee of mine errand. But haste thither, I crave, for here I will stay till thy coming again.
Declare your pleasure, sir, and whither I shall go, and then the case is plain.
Nay, of no great importance, but being here in Suavia, near unto the court, I would have thee to take thy way thither with all speed, because I would hear if any shows or triumphs be towards. Else would I not come there, for only upon feats of arms is all my delight.
If I had known so much before, serve that serve well. I would have served no martial knight. Well, sir, to accomplish your will, to the court I will by, and what news is there stirring, bring word by and by.
And he exits.
Do so, good knowledge, and here in place thy coming I will stay. For nothing doth delight me more than to hear of martial play. Can food unto the hungry corpse because of greater joy than for the naughty heart to hear, which doth itself employ through martial exercises much to win the bruit of fame, where mates do meet, which there unto their fancies seems to frame? Can music move the pensive heart of daunted mind delight? Can comfort more the careful corpse and over pallid sprite rejoice? Then sound of trumpet doth each warlike wight allure, and drum and fife unto the fight doth noble hearts procure. To see in sunder shivered the lance that leads the way, and worthy knights unbeavered in field amidst the fray, and hear the rattling cannons roar, and hilts on helmets ring, to see the soldiers swarm on heaps, where valiant hearts doth bring the cowardly crew into the case of careful captives' band, where ancients brave displayed it be, and won by force of hand. What wight would not as well delight as this, to hear and see, to take himself in like affairs, a fellow mate to be, with Clyomon to Denmark king, the only son and heir, who of the golden shield, as now the knightly name doth bear, in every land, since that I foiled the worthy knight of fame, Sir Samuel, before the king, and prince of martial game, Alexander called the Great, which when he did behold, he gave me in recompense this shield of glittering gold, requesting for to know my name, though it shall not be shown to any knight, unless by force he make it to be known. For so I vowed to Denmark king, my father's grace, when I first got his leave, that I abroad my force and strength might try. And so I have myself behaved, in city, town, and field, that never yet did fall reproach to the knight of the golden shield.
Enter subtle shift running. Muted at the moment.
God, Sams, where are you? Where are you? And you be a man, come away.
What's the matter, Knowledge? To tell thy errand, stay.
Stay? What talk you of staying? Wait, why then all the sight will be past. Clamydes, the king's son, shall be dubbed knight in all haste.
Knowledge, then come indeed, and good pastime thou shalt see, for I will take the honour from him, that dubbed I may be upon a courageous stomach. Let us haste hither.
And he exits, leaving shift behind.
Lead you the way, and I'll follow. We'll both be made knights together. Ah, sirrah, is my master so lusty, or dare he be so bold? It is no marvel, then, if he bear a shield of gold. But by your patience, if he continue in this business, farewell, master, then, for I promise you I intend not very long to be his man, although under the title of Knowledge, my name I do feign. Subtle Shift, I am called. That is most plain. And as it is my name, so it is my nature also to play the shifting knave wheresoe'er I go. Well, after him I will, but soft now. If my master chance to be lost, and any man examine me in telling his name, I am as wise as a post. What a villain was I, that ere he went could not ask it. Well, there's no great matter, I am but half bound. I may serve whom I will yet.
And exit. And again, we've got a few of these exits positions where it's actually quite difficult to decide where precisely the exit actually lives. It does seem to be that people are semi-exiting midway through other people's lines, which is good. It's dynamic. It's interesting. And it doesn't matter too much if they're in exactly the right place. I like subtle shift. It really does want to be said subtle shit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It seems to be going there. It's really interesting he's introduced by his fake name first, and also that Clyomon does not really get... I mean, he's got a bloody great shield, so we can probably assume the audience has vaguely figured out who he is. But I don't think his name actually crops up for quite a long time either. So it's quite interesting. We have these two characters who just appear and are doing stuff and business. And let's start with the business of the boot. My buttock, the very foundation thereof doth break.
That's another indication of an in-between space, isn't it? Because it sounds like we can see him.
It's like he's halfway through a curtain or something at the back, and his leg's off somewhere else. It's a really interesting question. How does that business occur? And how do you stage it? I'm just laying that out there to see if anyone wants to throw in thoughts. Because it's really quite detailed, the leg business, pulling it out. But where is his relationship to the stage and the offstage?
And what does he do thereafter? Does he just have one boot, or does he recover the boot?
You see,
I mean, does he go through the rest of the play with one boot on and one boot off?
Or does the big lummock get it for him?
Or just the stagehand just throw it on stage, just going.
it's a great entrance. I feel as though
Great
we've had really as you say in filmmaking, establishing shots where you like set up an environment through just one shot. I feel like we're getting that for the characters. The very first line that was spoken gave us a very clear indication of that person and this play. Juliana's appearance kind of it establishes her quite well. Shifts entrance, butt first and complaining about it is it's fantastic. Yeah.
Lois.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One more thing. I was envisaging this as with the sort of outdoor type of stage, or elevated stage in any case, that we generally get in theatres of that period, and with the idea that he's rather than slipping onto the stage backwards from backstage, he's coming from the audience space. So they're the Maya. Just because you are asking about staging this.
Yeah. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any other entrance like that, actually. And I remember being told that in Spanish drama, characters quite often enter as if they've just been thrown from a horse and they kind of roll on. And certainly there's at least one play, the famous one, the Life is a Dream, which seems to open like that. And I think there are others. But yeah, this one is very strange. I mean, it sounds as if it needs a trap door, but I'm sure they didn't have one. So there must have been something else.
Well, it's the way it's given momentum, because it's basically, come on, chap, who I've never met before, but who we're going to obviously have a lovely chin wag. I mean, I think Clymon's your performance is really getting to something about his hearty nature. I don't know if that's right or not, but it seems to work. And he just turns around and he's gone. So it has momentum, which I really like. That's interesting. I think I saw a hand from Alan ages ago.
Well, it's one I think you could actually play him as being a rather posh rugby playing public school boy. Again, on the grounds of his athleticism or his build rather than his intellect. And the other costuming point, coming back to this one about whether the Vice is going to recover his boot or whatever, you could actually do a gag where he actually finds a mismatched piece of footwear. so he does the rest of it with, or the rest of the scene at least, with a boot on one leg and a tennis shoe on t'other.
Because it's not like this scene is particularly interested in doing too much mechanically in terms of plot. It's very much about setting up the characters. At the end of the scene, Shift runs on and says, hey, the A plot's happening over there. And shall we join it? And you know how they fit into that plot, but they're not really a separate plot in that sense. I mean, Shift says some pretty unpleasant things. I think we should also, he sets himself up as being a bit dodgy. Considering they're calling him knowledge at the beginning, there's that question of how far are you signifying that is a lie at the beginning?
Knowledge in the sense of carnal knowledge?
I think he's trying to set himself up as a virtuous person. That's why he's calling him knowledge, and he's, obviously he is not. Lynn, I saw a hand.
Oh, yeah. So back to the idea of establishing the establishing shot. The other thing that this is establishing is genres. The first scene, we've got a flying serpent, we've got a noble knight and a lovely maiden, all of those folklore, fairy tale elements. Oh, okay, so that's the genre. And she's got a silver shield. Okay, we know where we are. We know what world we're in. And practically the first thing you see in the second scene is the Vice character. It says in the stage directions he's the Vice. I don't know how the audience knew that, but I get the sense that there's something about his appearance or the way he talks that signals to them, okay, now we're in the world of morality plays, and this is the Vice. So we've got genre A and genre B, as well as as characters being established. So the audience already knows that their expectations are going to be played with as the plot unfolds.
And we're sort of in that middle space between, your formal vice which is doing a very moral thing, and the clown figure of a company, and we're sort of in that, when this first is written, this is presumably living in that sort of in-between space as things are starting to change. And so I think you're right in terms of there would be some sense of convention about costuming, or also it's just that's the actor who always plays vices.
Yeah.
Or later on clowns. So it fits nicely into the repertoire as it would be later, as well as stuff that's going on earlier and things like that. I see lots of hands. Lois first.
Yeah, I was just trying to think how you might do this gag of his thinking he's lost his leg. I mean, if you were sort of coming onto the stage and kind of kneeling on one leg, with reaching for his boot and couldn't find the rest of his leg because in fact it was under him. I don't know, just that seems to be demanding some kind of goofy business.
Alexandra, I think I saw a hand.
Yeah, I was going to make the point you made about there being presumably some kind of convention about costuming or appearance related. This is a vice type character, so that wouldn't need signaling because everybody would recognize it. How do we do that in a modern context? I don't know.
It's an interesting question whether we need to.
But that's,
he's out for himself, and he states he is subtle shift. But apart from that, he's just someone on the make, perhaps. Who knows? I don't know where we're going yet.
Well, but also I think it doesn't need a signal of that nature even nowadays, because we're not going to mistake him for a virtuous person when he calls himself knowledge, and then in his very next line he alludes to being carnal knowledge, just like Alan said. The very first time he speaks after declaring his name, he's let me but lie with her all night, right? That's his demonstration of what knowledge is. So we're not. I think it would be interesting to as if to try and fool us as a modern audience as well. But yeah, it's not as though this isn't I was about to go into a realm that would incur a duck. This isn't someone who is going to surprise us part way through.
Well, you say that you don't know where it's going yet. You could be entirely wrong. Alan.
I was just thinking, actually, two modern characters you could use to play the vice would be either a Del Boy or Private Walker.
The
Spiv in Dad's Army.
And
in fact, Walker, I think, would work quite nicely. Almost down to open up the jacket. How many of these Rolexes would you like?
Helen.
In all this, we're slightly missing Sir Clyomon. He's very well, in an enormous speech, establishing himself as a very typical young prince, completely obsessed by armor and martial feats. I mean, he's the way that young men nowadays are into cars than they were into armors. And it was very, very, very expensive. It was a tremendously expensive business. And also, I think it's rather interesting that he's been given permission by his father to travel, but only on condition that nobody ever finds out who he is.
Which, it's a good thing he's not carrying a whack and great golden shield or anything.
Oh, no, he got that later. Alexandra of Macedon gave it to him.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, but if he's told to go incognito, wandering around like that.
No. This is classic medieval literature stuff, right? The knight in the black helmet, the knight with the white plume, the knight with no name is always in refusing to tell people who his name is until they beat him in single combat. It's
Lois.
Yeah, it's also shown what a great intelligence he's got, since he immediately sees that subtle shift is endued with noble qualities. And then as far as I can make out, his plan at the end of the scene is to get himself knighted in place of the person who's supposed to be being knighted, which is a funny attitude to honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lynn, were you coming in?
Just quick response to Lois. No. Honor is a zero-sum game.
Well, different definitions of honor, right?
Can you enlarge on that? I missed the point of that.
Well, it's something that I think Europe kind of inherited from the Roman tradition, and this is me. There's not scholarship to back this up, but basically, the more honor and fame and dignitas, I don't know if people are familiar with that term, you have, the less I have. So I can't talk about the best example of this without so I won't, but it's
a finite commodity.
That's right. That's what I mean by zero. It's a zero sum means more for you is less for me, and if I get fame, I have to take it away from somebody.
Aliki.
There are different definitions of honor involved here. One being, honor, skill at arms, being successful in battle. Another being honor, decency, good behavior, and they're possibly in conflict. I don't know. I was inclined to think I was playing him too dim, but I've changed my mind. Okay, I'm going to go with
Okay. Very briefly, Alan.
I'm just getting more of a picture of these two protagonists are basically being expensively but not necessarily well educated.
Well, yeah. I think there is a question we do need to bear in mind also as we go into the next scenes of bearing in mind the question of what is the difference between our two leads. It may not be a huge difference, but we won't discuss it now. But just that's something I think to bear in mind. We've got two central characters in the title. What distinguishes them as well as is similar between them, because I think there's a lot of overlap, but there's also differences, and I think we'll get more evidence of that as we go along. We're going to go into scene 3 now, however. Now, technically there are two lords, but they don't say very much, so they're the same lord. Lynn is going to be both lords, as it were, for this coming scene. So scene 3, as I've got it noted: enter the king of Suavia with the herald before him, Clamydes, and 3 lords. Oh, there's 3 of them, actually.
They're multiplying. They're multiplying, I tell you.
Anyway, the king speaks first.
Come, Clamydes, thou our son, at thy father's talk attend, since thou art pressed thy useful days in prowess for to spend. And doest us of the order ask for knighthood for to have. We know thy deeds deserve the same, and that which thou dost crave thou shalt possess. But first, my son, know thou thy father's charge, and what to knighthood doth belong, thine honour to enlarge. Unto what end a knight is made, that likewise thou mayst know, and bearing the same in mind also, that honour thine may flow among the worthies of the world, to thy immortal fame. Know thou therefore, Clamydes dear, to have a knightly name is first above all other things, is God for to adore, in truth according to the laws prescribed to him before. Secondly, that he be true unto his Lord and King. Thirdly, that he keep his faith and troth in everything. And then, before all other things, that else we can commend, that he be always ready pressed, his country to defend, the widow poor and fatherless, or innocent bearing blame, to see their cause redressed right, a faithful knight must frame. In truth, he must always be tried. This is the total charge, that will receive a knightly name, his honour to enlarge.
Oh, father, this your gracious counsel, given to me, your only son, shall not be in oblivion cast, till vital race be run. What way doth win Dame Honour's crown, those paths my steps shall trace, and those that to reproach doth lead, which seeketh to deface true honour in her regal seat, I shall detest for aye, and be as utter enemy to them both night and day. By flying force of flickering flame, your grace shall understand of my behaviour, noble sire, in every foreign land, and if you hear, by true report, I venture in the barge of wilfulness, contrary this, your grace's noble charge, let ignominy to my reproach instead of lady fame. Sound through the earth and azure skies the strained blast of shame, whereby within oblivion's tomb my deeds shall be detained, where otherwise of memory the mind I might have gained, so that the den of darksomeness shall ever be my chest, where worthy deeds prefers each wight with honour to be blessed.
O Clamydes, then kneel down according as is right, that here thou mayst receive of me the order of a knight.
And here let Clamydes kneel. Climon, however, with subtle shift, watching in place, and as the king doth go about to lay the mace on Clamydes' head, Climon takes the blow. Question mark, discuss later.
Now prepare yourself, or I'll be either a knight or a knave.
Content thyself, knowledge, for I'll quickly him deceive.
No, the noble orders of a knight, Clamydes, to thee we give through due desert, whereof see that thou be both valiant, wise, and hardy.
Away now quickly, lest we be take tardy.
And exeunt Clyomon and subtle shift.
Ah, stout attempt to baron bold, that hath this from my son, the knighthood taken, my lord's pursued, as fast as he can be run.
And lords exit at some speed.
Ah, Clamydes, how art thou bereft of honour here? Was like presumption ever seen, that one, a stranger mere, should come in presence of a prince, and tempt as he has done, to take the knighthood thus away from him who is his son?
Oh, father, how am I perplexed till I revenged be upon the wretch with here hath ta'en the honour thus from me. Was ever anyone deceived of knighthood so before?
O Clamydes, my lord's return, stay till we do no more.
Enter shift brought in by the two lords who pursued Clamon.
O king, the knight is fled and gone, pursuit prevaileth not, but here his slave we taken have to tell why this he wrought.
Ah, cruel grudge that grieves my ghost. Shall he escape me so? Shall he with honour from my son without disturbance go? Ah, caitiff thou, declare his name, and why he ventured here, or death shall be thy guerdon sure. By all the gods I swear.
And shall please you, I know neither him, his country, nor name.
What, sir? Are you not his servant? Will you deny the same?
Nay, then you are a dissembling knave, I know very well.
And shall please your grace, even the very truth I shall tell. I should have been his servant when we met together, which was not full 3 hours before we came hither.
Well, what is his name, and of what country? Declare.
With that I cannot I tell, and shall please you. You never saw servant in such care to know his master's name, neither in town nor field, and what he was he would tell, but the Knight of the Golden Shield.
Well, Clamydes, mark my charge, what I to thee shall say, prepare thyself for to pursue that traitor on his way. With hath thine honour rent from thee, and either by force of hand, or love, his name and native soil, see that thou understand, that I may know for what intent he bear this grudge to thee, else see thou dost return again to visit me. For this imports him for to be of valiant heart and mind, and therefore do pursue thy foe until thou dost him find, to know his name and what he is, or as I said before, do never view thy father eye in presence any more.
Well, father, sith it is your charge and precept given to me, and more for mine own honour's sake, I frankly do agree to undertake the enterprise, his name to understand, or never else to show my face again in Suavia land. Wherefore, I humbly do desire the order to receive of knighthood, which my sole desire hath ever been to have. It is the name and mean whereby true honour is achieved. Let me not then, O father dear, thereof now be deprived, sith that my honour cowardly was stolen by caitiff he, and not by dint of dastard's deeds, O father, lost by me.
Well, Clamydes, then kneel down here in our noble sight. We give to thee that art our son the order of a knight. But, as thou wilt our favour win, accomplish my desire.
Else never to your royal court, O father, I'll retire.
Well then, adieu, Clamydes dear, the gods thine aider be. But come, my lords, to have his hire, that caitiff bring with me.
Alas, and it shall please you I am knowledge, and no evil did pretend. Set me at liberty, it was the knight that did offend.
Oh, father, sith that he is knowledge, I beseech your grace set him free, for in these affairs he shall wait and tend on me, if he will protest to be true to me ever.
Ah, noble Clamydes, here's my hand, I'll deceive you never.
Well then, father, I beseech your grace, grant that I may have him.
Well, Clamydes, I'm content, sith thou, my son, dost crave him. Receive him, therefore, at my hands. My lords, come, let's depart.
We ready are to wait on you, O king, with willing heart.
And they exit, leaving Clamydes and shift behind.
Well, knowledge, do prepare thyself, for here I do protest my father's precepts to fulfil, no day nor night to rest from toilsome travel, till I have revenged my cause aright on him who of the golden shield now beareth name of knight, who of mine honour hath me robbed in such a cowardly sort. As for to be of noble heart, it doth not him import. But knowledge, to me thy service still thou must with loyal heart profess.
Use me that all other villains may take example by me, if I digress.
Well then, come follow speedily, that him pursue we may.
And Clamydes exits, but Shift is still left on stage.
Keep you before, and shall please you, for I mind not to stay. Sirrah Shift, thou hast driven to thy shifts now indeed. I dreamed before that untowardly I should speed, and yet it is better luck than I looked to have. But as the prophet saith, good fortune ever happeneth to the veriest knave. And yet I could not escape with my master, do what I can. Well, by this bargain he hath lost his new serving man, but if Clamydes overtake him now, what buffets will there be? Unless it be 4 miles off the fray, there will be no standing for me. Well, after him I will, but howsoever my master speeds to shift for myself, I am fully decreed.
And that scene closes. I don't think it helps that I think that stage direction, that quite vital stage direction, seems to be slightly misplaced or is covering quite an area of text. But basically, yeah, he steals a knighthood.
Well, how? What physical thing? I mean, he receives the blow.
Pushes him out the way.
He basically just nudges him out of the way and takes the sword.
But barges him out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very clear from the way it's written, but that seems to be what's happening. And I mean, how it's done, is it a commando roll? How quick is it? Does the king have bad eyesight? Or, it's really fun. Because once it's done, it can't be undone.
I mean, I see the king as actually either swinging round with the sword or coming down from above and not seeing what he's landing on until it's landed. Or else they're all wearing helmets with visors and no one can see a damn thing.
We've been joking in the chat about this being a superhero movie, you know, golden shield and everything. But maybe we need Quicksilver. Stop time, get in there.
Oh, I like that. It's interesting also, I was just making a note about some of the verse, because we've got some of these lines that are sort of overflowing over themselves, and you know, we've been talking about how it's quite nice bouncing along with the rhythm, but sometimes there's some of these lines where I'm sort of looking at it going, no, sometimes we really need to break it up a bit, especially with the king. He didn't feel comfortable in that rhythm, and that some of those lines that do run on over into each other, that maybe you know, some people are playing with it more than others. I mean, Clamydes does some more alliteration, lots of going on, flying force, a flickering flame. Lois.
Yeah, I think some of it is not so much for teeners as doggerel, and I think doggerel is a method of really writing prose in verse. I mean, just you know, letting it be as long as it needs to be, as long as there's some sort of rhyme at the end.
I do also think, you know, if it is coming via the Queen's Men, I really think they as actors bugger around with their own text quite a lot before it ends up being printed. And I think, I mean, that's a personal opinion that can be definitely ignored, but it just seems to be that, yeah, this is just what that actor liked. It may have been a bit less rough earlier in the day, but again, people can entirely ignore that because it's utterly unsubstantiated by anything. Alexandra.
To add to that, I think there might be something really, really fun to play with in establishing a system, because the beginning has those really epic kind of like melodramatically exaggerated verse forms and things. And I think if you establish that as, you know, ladies and gentlemen, this is how this production is going to sound. And then you start breaking it by either having, you know, lines that are too short, or lines where we're going, I need to speed this up so that I can fit into the meter, or things like that. I think that would be so much fun, you know, for the actors to play with, and also for an audience to catch on to, and to gain characterization from, as well as just entertainment.
I mean, also, I think, you know, the verse that is least regular is, of course, the Vices shift. There's a lot of that not very regular stuff going on, and that seems, again, also, you know, if anyone's going to rewrite the dialogue, it's going to be the clown. Don't trust them buggers. Other thoughts? Alan?
Yeah, just coming back to the point at which the knighthood gets given the wrong way. I see that as being a rugby tackle, you know, or American football move. You know, it's basically a run across, barge him out of the way.
Yeah, it's a very. It feels like he's the bigger of the two, doesn't it? From the text so far, I don't know if he is or not. I saw a hand from Lynn earlier.
I have a kind of unformed thought, but I think if you were going to do any kind of performance of this, you would want to look at the verse forms, because I think they signal generic shifts in genre, from morality play to romance to whatever else we have going on here. So and I think there's genres that the original audience would have been more familiar with than we are, so those shifts in verse form would have, you know, clicked something in them, maybe not even consciously. It's like, oh, we've shifted to morality play now, because the Vice is from the morality tradition, which is what, we've got going on with shift there. Yeah, so
I'm wondering about that, because I'm not sure whether Shift is actually. It feels like he's a character who's walked in on the wrong play in that sense, but he doesn't feel like he's doing anything morality-ish within it. He just happens to be not very good as a human being. So it's that interesting thing of I don't know whether the play itself is doing anything with morality, or it's just that's a convention, which is very loose by this point. We've been looking at some of these later moralities or interlude kind of plays, and a lot of these later interludes are not very moral at all, or not very interested in what 50 years earlier they would have been very heavily on. So it's sort of that interesting sort of shift. It's an interesting shift. Sarah, I saw a hand, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I was just going back to the previous point about the about him and the two knights and the differences between them. I mean, they both seem to me. I really liked Alan's analogy about them being, sort of both sort of nice but dim Tims, well educated but not particularly intelligent. And they both seem to have a very present energy. They're not deep thinkers. They're not like that. They're very near people who are sort of, both, very much in the moment. So they're similar in that way. But I do feel that Clamydes has a much lighter. He's got a much lighter energy, and I do think he's sort of more. I'm thinking of him as sort of Hugh Laurie. Kind of posh boy, whereas the other one whose name escapes me now, Clyomon, he's more of a sort of rugged bugger type, like hefty, broad shoulders, good on the field. So it's like they are quite similar in a way, but they have a difference in energy in terms of physical weight, but also weight of presence, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're inferring this from, just from basically how they're talking. And I think that's interesting because I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that notion at the moment. I think, someone might, and we may find more data later on that will contradict it. We're very, very early in this. We've not done very much of this text at all. So we are possibly leaping too far. I should also point out they are now enemies. The trial is on. Who knows where this is going. I see lots and lots of hands. I'll start with Lois.
Right. Yeah, that's sort of following on, actually, because the king gives us a speech about what knighthood means, and the whole ideal of it, and Clamydes clearly agrees with all this, and then along comes Clyomon and just wrecks the whole thing by barging in and getting the knighthood without any understanding of what they've been talking about. I think it could be quite fun in staging if you made a really elaborate ceremony of it with lots of people marching in and solemn music and everything, and then had the whole thing completely wrecked at the last minute. I mean, it goes along with what you were saying about the difference between the two guys. I'm sure it doesn't happen like this in Buckingham Palace.
I like the idea of the ceremony for the first time being really elaborate, and then when he says, "Oh, quickly knight me, Dad," and it's just to really give him a sense of annoyance as well. It's like going, "Well, I can knight you now, but I've used up one of my knighthoods, so you're going to have to get your revenge, son. That's the system. Can't change the system." Who else wanted to jump in? Aliki.
So I was talking the last time about different definitions of honor, and I think you could argue that we've got two different definitions of honor in play here, with honor is being good in battle, therefore I will provoke this dude and make him fight me, being Clyomon's thing, and Clamydes going, duty, being good to people who need me, and protecting the weak, and all that. Yeah, I like that. But also, of course, these are character choices that we made in this room, and they are believable to you because they were made in this virtual space and around each other, right? So, when you've got a subtle shift to play off, you don't want to be light, you want to be a big lunk so that he can do that, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. We can change our mind. We're allowed. Alexandra?
Yeah, just kind of crystallizing what Aliki said in what I was thinking of it as a contrast between chivalric ideals and chivalry in practice.
Yeah. That's interesting. Cynical, but interesting.
Any quick points left? Helen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the White Knight, that's Clamydes, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, He's now busy because he's supposed to be chasing the serpent, the flying serpent.
Right.
So he only zipped back home to get his knighthood en route to kill the serpent. But now he's got a completely different quest because he's got to get Clyomon to name himself. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
request.
Oh, we're going to lean into fast traditions. Talking of that, we do still have 2 scenes to do. We're actually starting to run out of time because we've been talking so much, which is fabulous. So we have a shortish scene coming on, as we all expected it. Naturally, we go to scene 4, which is enter King Alexander the Great. Got a name check earlier. As valiantly set forth as may be, and as many soldiers as can ... be afforded. Whoever's not in the next scene or wasn't in the last scene, get a tin hat on now. And go, Alexander.
After many invincible victories and conquests great achieved, I, Alexander, with sound of fame, in safety am arrived upon my borders long wished for of Macedonia's soil, and all the world subject have through force of warlike toil. O Mars, I laud thy sacred name, and for this safe return to Pallas' temple will I wend, and sacrifices burn to thee, Bellona, and the rest that warlike wights do guide, who for King Alexander did such good success provide. Who bows not now unto my beck? My force who doth not fear? Who doth not of my conquests great throughout the world hear? What king, as to his sovereign lord, doth now bow not his knee? What prince doth reign upon the earth which yields not unto me due homage for his regal mace? What country is at liberty? What dukedom, island, or province else to me are not tributary? What fort of force or castle strong have I not battered down? What prince is he that now by me his princely seat and crown doth not acknowledge for to hold? Not one, the world throughout, but of King Alexander's power they all do stand in doubt. They fear, as fowls that hovering fly from out the falcon's way, as lamb the lion, so my power the stoutest do obey. In field who hath not felt my force where battering blows abound? King or Kaiser who hath not fixed his knees to me on ground? And yet, Alexander, what art thou? Thou art a mortal wight, for all that ever thou hast got or won by force in fight.
Acknowledging thy state, O king, to be as thou hast said, the gods, no doubt as they have been, will be thy shield and aid in all attempts thou takest in hand, if case no glory vain thou seekst, but acknowledging thy victories and gain through the providence of sacred gods to happen unto thee. For vain is trust that in himself man doth repose, we see. And therefore, lest these victories which thou hast got should blind thine eyes with arrogancy, thy noble fame to blot, let that victorious prince his words of Macedon, thy fire, to acknowledge still thy state, O king, thy noble heart inspire, who after all his victories triumphantly obtained, lest that the great felicity of that which he hath gained should cause him to forget himself. A child he did provide, which came unto his chamber door, and every morning cried, Philip, thou art a mortal man. This practice of thy sire, amidst all these thy victories, thy servant doth desire. O Alexander, that thou wilt them print within thy mind, and then no doubt, as father did, thy solace sweet shall find.
My lords, your counsel doubtless I esteem, and with great thanks again I do requite your courtesy. Rejecting this is plain all vainglory from my heart, And since the gods divine to us above all other kings this fortune doth assign, to have in our subjection the world for most part, we will at this 1 hour return with fervent zeal of heart in palace temple to the gods such sacrifices make of thankfulness for our success, as they in part shall take the same a gratulation sufficient from us sent. Come, therefore, let us homeward march to accomplish our intent.
We ready are, most famous king, to follow thee with victory.
Then sound your drums and trumpets both, that we may march triumphantly.
We were talking about morality plays earlier, and Alexander comes on and makes his boast. It's almost a tyrant-y speech. It doesn't seem to be in tone, but it's doing all those things of aren't I great? I've got all these kaisers and kings kneel down to me, and aren't I fab? I'm not really sure why things. I'm not quite sure. I mean, apart from to break the last scene and this scene up, and it's probably setting something up further down the line. But what did anyone say? I mean, they said a lot of words, and Alexander's great, obviously, but apart from that,
yeah, I think that this is a slightly too obvious structural element here. You have the rule that you can't have a character exit and enter right in a row, because that confuses the audience. You have to have a scene in between to indicate you've got a shift in location. So Alexander is there to break up Clamydes appearances. So I mean, it's kind of a structural thing.
To a point. I mean, he doesn't emerge immediately in the next scene, so it's not whole. I mean, it's true. It's nice to break it up with something else. It's just the something else isn't really very clear what it's doing. Sarah.
I have no idea what it's doing yet, but I trust that it is going to be doing something. I mean, Clyomon was on his way to Alexander, wasn't he? Didn't he say?
No,
So-
he beamed.
Oh, he beamed Alex. Oh, okay.
Alexander was the one who
Oh, yeah,
gave
he
him his
beamed.
golden shield.
Oh, of course, right. Okay, well, I'm assuming then that's setting something up. He's going to want his shield back or something. I have no idea. I'm assuming something later is going to come of this. But what I did find really interesting was, I was saying earlier that I find it very hard to take characters seriously when they're speaking in heptameter. But I'm really enjoying the characterization in this play, because we've already had this, discussion about the two knights. And then Alexander comes on and he's speaking in heptameter as well. And yet he's not funny. He's not, he is what he's supposed to be. He's like big, badass, slightly tyrannical, impressive leader. And it just goes to show that actually you can use heptameter for, it doesn't have to bounce. It can actually be, you can use it to convey that kind of, that kind of more soldierly, kind of weightier character. And I just think this playwright actually really knows what he's doing.
Oh, I mean, it's really interesting, comparing it with the last king we had. They both have that similar thing. They're not quite doing the same thing with the verse.
Yeah, they're not the same though, and that you get it. Well, I'm getting a very strong, clear indication of the characters from the way they speak, and that's. Given that that's happening within the confines of heptameter, I'm finding that massively impressive, actually.
And it's also that thing about I mentioned again morality play, or actually mystery play. It's a sort of idea of someone coming and making the boast, but also especially with Alexander the Great, that reminder of a bit of civic pageantry as well, of someone coming on and standing underneath a triumphal arch that's been specially built, just going, "I am Alexander the Great, and I am great. I have done great things." and I therefore commend myself unto whichever royal personage I need to ask. Look now, and that's sort of what he does. And so that sort of reminded me of that here as well. And I wonder if there's a connection. Helen.
A small, irrelevant point. It's totally unhistorical. This is obviously a mature Alexander, which he never lived to be, and he's returning to Macedon, which he never did.
So apart from that, fine. Yeah.
I mean, not that it matters, but
he didn't die. Anyway. It was all a cover up. You see, it's all a conspiracy later on. Aliki.
So I'm wondering if there's a medieval tradition of Alexander stories. Certainly in Greece, there are remnants of traditional ones about his immortality and about a serpent. So both of which have come up in this play. And it makes me curious, is there a cycle of Alexander stories, perhaps, that both are drawing on?
We don't know of, I don't know of any in drama. Within civic pageantry, that kind of stuff turns up all the time. So mighty people killing dragons, and that might be George, but it also might be Catherine, and it might even be Alexander. Because if you've got the dragon prop, you're going to use it every couple of years. So it might be something of an overlap there. I'm not saying that there aren't. I just literally know of none. Yeah. Extent. Lois might have something there. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. No, I'm not a medievalist. I have a feeling there is a cycle around Alexander, which gets pretty wildly away from anything about the Greek Macedonian guy. I thought this is really quite different in style from anything else. I mean, there's that whole memento mori thing that comes in at the end, and we'll talk about Philip having somebody remind him that he was mortal. And the whole atmosphere of that scene is just is very moral, in spite of Alexander being this big bully, maybe. But it's a totally different world almost from that of the two knights who are operating on a very simple idea of what they're supposed to be doing in life. Also, I think he does establish himself as probably the authority figure in the play. I mean, he's the highest ranking person. And so if you're expecting anything, you're expecting that he will at some point solve everybody's problems.
Okay, so we're going to go into the final scene because we do need to rush forward. Aliki, unless you want to be super quick.
Very quickly, I found that there's an Alexander romance, and I will look into it more.
All right.
So it might be more in literature rather than in drama. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It's just we don't have it. And so more research, and I'm sure something will come up as we go along. So scene 5, last scene of the session. It's a reasonably long one as far as the length of scenes that we've had so far. So enter Sir, who's a Sir now, remember. Sir Clyomon, Knight of the Golden Shield.
Now, Clyomon, a knight thou art, though some perhaps may say thou cowardly camest to Clamydes and stole his right away. No, it was no cowardly part to come in presence of a king and in the face of all his court to do so worthy a thing. Amidst the mates that marshal be and stern knights of his hall to take the knighthood from their prince, even maugre of them all. It gives a guerdon of goodwill to make my glory glance. When warlike wights shall hear thereof, my fame they will advance. And where I was pretended late to Denmark's king, my sire, his royal grace to see, onward to retire, now is my purpose altered by bruit of late report, and where fame resteth to be had, thither Clyomon will resort. For as I understand by fame, that worthy prince of might, the conqueror of conquerors, who Alexander hight, returning is to Macedon from many a bloody broil, and there to keep his royal court, now after weary toil, which makes the mind of Clyomon with joys to be clad. For there I know of martial mates his company to be had. And you, therefore, both Denmark king and Suavia prince beside, to Alexander's court I will. The gods my journey guide.
Enter Clamydes and shift.
Come, knowledge. Here he is. Nay, stay, thou cowardly knight, that like a dastard camest to steal away my right.
What? But you rail, Sir Princox Prince, me coward for the call.
And she'll please you, he is a coward. He would have hired me amidst your father's hall. To have done it for him, being himself in such a state that scarcely he durst before your presence appear.
Why, how now, knowledge? What forsake thy maester so soon?
Nay, maester was, but not maester is. With you I have done.
Well, for what intent canst thou my honour to steal away?
That I took aught from thee, I utterly deny.
Take the honour which my father to me gave.
Of that thou hadst not, I could not thee deprave.
Oh, didst thou not take away my knighthood from me?
No, for I had it before it was given unto thee. And having it before thee, what arguments canst thou make that ever from thee the same I did take?
That's true. He received the blow before you it came, and therefore he took it not from you, because you had not the same.
Well, what hight thy name? Let me that understand. And wherefore thou travellest here in my father's land so boldly to attempt in his court such a thing?
The bolder the attempt is, the more fame it doth bring.
Nay, he hath stolen. Sorry, I skipped a
What
line there.
my name is, desirest thou to know?
Nay, he hath stolen sheep, I think, for he is ashamed his name for to show.
What thy name is, I would gladly perstand.
Nay, that never none shall know, unless by force of hand he vanquish me in fight. Such a vow I have made. Therefore, to combat with me thyself to persuade, if thou wilt know my name.
Well, I accord the same.
Nay, then God be with you if you be at that point. I am God. If you be of the fighter's disposition, I'll leave you alone.
Oh, why stay, knowledge? Although I fight, thou shalt not be molested.
To please you, this fear hath made me bewray myself with a pruned stone that was not digested.
Well, Clamydes, stay thyself, and mark my sayings here. Do not think I speak this same for that thy force I fear, but that more honour may redound unto the victor's part, wilt thou here give thy hand to me without fraud of heart upon the faith which to a knight doth rightly appertain, and by the loyalty of a knight I'll swear to thee again for to observe my promise just, which if thou agree the 15th day next following to meet, Sir Prince, with me, before King Alexander's grace in Macedonia soil, who all the world subject hath through force of warlike toil. For he is chief of chivalry and king of martial mates, and to his royal court, thou knowest, repair all estates. Give me thy hand upon thy faith of promise not to fall, and here is mine to thee again. If fortune's froward gale resist me not, the day forspoke to meet Sir Prince with thee before that king, to try our strengths. Say, if thou dost agree, for triple honour will it be to him that gets the victory before so worthy a prince as he, and nobles all so publicly, where otherwise, if in this place we should attempt the same, of the honour that were got thereby but small would be the fame.
Well, Sir Knight, here is my hand. I'll meet thee in place forspoke.
And by the loyalty of a knight, I'll not my words revoke.
Oh, till then, adieu. I'll keep my day.
And exit one of them.
Oh,
Me.
oh. And I, if no, that doesn't.
Yeah,
make
that looks like that's a misapplication of the. So I'm going to say it's the other one, or maybe it's not.
Okay. Well, which do you
Something's gone wrong there. Okay, that's an interesting question.
want? Just say it. Just say it, Aliki.
Me. And I, if fates do not gainsay.
What, is he gone and did take no leave of me? Jeez, you so unmannerly a gentleman did any man see? But now, my lord, which way will you travel, declare?
Sith, I have 15 days, respite myself to prepare. My lady's charge for to fulfill. Behold, I do intend.
Your lady, and shall please you. Why, who is your lady? May a man be so bold as ask and not offend?
Oh, Juliana, daughter to the King of Denmark. Lo is she whose knight I am, and from her hands this shield was given to me, in sign and token of goodwill, whose noble grace to gain I have protested in her cause for to omit no pain, nor travail, till I have subdued the flying serpent's force, which in the forest of marvels is, who taketh no remorse of womankind, but doth devour all such as are astray, so that no one dares go abroad, nor wander forth the way. And since I have yet 15 days myself for to prepare to meet the Knight of the Golden Shield, my heart is void of care. I will enter the forest when, sith it is on my way, and for my Juliana's sake, that cruel serpent slay.
What? Are you a madman? Will you wilfully be slain? If you go into that forest, you will never come out again.
Why so, knowledge? Dost thou think the serpent I fear?
No, but do you not know of Brian Sanfoy, the champion dwells there?
A cowardly knight, knowledge is he, and dares fight with no man.
A noble match. Couple him and me together then. Yeah, but although he dare not fight, an enchanter he is, and whosoever comes in that forest to enchant, he doth not miss.
Tush, tush, I fear him not, knowledge, and therefore come away.
And exit Clamydes.
Well, seeing you are so wilful, go you before. I'll not stay. Sarah. Now I know all my master's mind, the which I did not before, and he adventureth for a lady. Well, I say no more. But to escape the enchantments of Brian sans foi, that's Brian without faith, I have devised a noble toy, for he and I are both of one consanguinity. The veriest cowardly villain that ever was born, that's of a certainty. I'll fight with no man. No more will Brian, that's plain. But by his enchantments he putteth many to great pain, and in a forest of strange marvels doth he keep, altogether by enchantments, to bring men asleep till he have wrought his will to them, of them. To Brian straight will I, and of my master's coming to the forest, inform him privily, so shall I win his favour. And a subtle shift, in the end thou shalt scape his enchantment, for he will be thy friend. We're well unknown to my master, for mine own safeguard this will I do. And now, like a subtle shifting knave, after him will I go.
Off to find the fearful Brian. Yes, there's a name that doesn't perhaps have quite the same weight, unless it's of the blessed variety. And this scene sort of rewards the previous scene with Alexander, so that when they're talking about Alexander, we know who we're talking about now. We've met him. And constantly referring to, it's I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to fight you now, but we're going to do it properly. We're going to go to Alexander. It's going to be great. He's got all the stuff. We can set up a decent fight. It'll be fantastic. And Clamydes going, well, I've got 15 days to kill a serpent. Well, I might as well do that now. Might as well kill the time. So yeah, there's lovely bits of fighting shift, a variation on making buttons, dropping a prune into your trousers, as it were. Always like a joke about someone shitting themselves for fear. It's always good. Lots and lots of those. Something obviously slightly out with some of these character name prefixes. Easily solved, but there might be some confusion here. That's interesting. Thoughts? Fun old scene. Nobody knows their names yet. Apart from Shift, who nobody knows the name of. The correct name of, that is. Who wants to leap in? Lynn.
I have some sort of unformed thoughts, but the conversation towards the beginning of the scene between Clamydes and Clyomon, who's, I was thinking before I read the play, we just need to change those names, but now I see that the similarity of those names is part of the point. You stole my knighthood. Well, I didn't steal it. It wasn't yours. I sneaked in there before it actually happened. Therefore, it's mine. I just love this little exchange because it's really very subversive. It really undermines the idea that knighthood even exists, because it really interrogates, what does knighthood consist in? Is it like a magical gesture? Is it not a matter of record? I mean, does it not count if that wasn't the intention of the person doing the knighting? I mean, it's really, really subversive. It just calls into question the actual existence or reality of legitimacy of this thing that we all agree is called knighthood.
And it's also interesting, the way, one of them just goes, okay, yeah, that argument sort of works. I'm going to change tack now.
Yeah.
Let's do the fighty thing. No indications precisely of a fight situation, whether the fight starts or doesn't start, or whether they're just preparing to start. What happens there, Alexandra?
My understanding from the dialogue was that the conversation basically goes, I challenge you, I accept. Right, is Tuesday good for you?
Yeah.
Are you free for? Okay, good, let's do that.
But it's got to scare Shift enough to, so there's got to be some sort of, pre-fighting setup kind of stuff.
I think in performance that it definitely could be done in a way that sounds like that I challenge you is right now, convincingly to the audience and everybody else, even though they, because they're honorable, never intend to do that.
Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing that. Oh, I'm getting ready to fight here, because that was what was working best on Zoom. But you could imagine Clamydes unsheathing his sword and kind of brandishing it about in a sort of slightly wild fashion, and Shift having to literally duck out of the way so he doesn't.
And so he turns around and says, "I won't hurt you," and he's going,
"Yes,
oh, exactly. Nearly did."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Alan?
I can almost see Shift as being a Spike Milligan one. I'm a hero from the waist up, but I've got coward's legs.
It's that thing that Shift is, again, he's not so much a vice per se, he's just out for himself. He's just trying to leech off these two knights, presumably for some cash. You are now his squire or whatever, and he just keeps changing between sides, and he just keeps moving on for the next person. And so I'm wondering if money is changing hands, at points as well for his service. What's his motivation? He could just run off now. Your master just literally left you alone, and you just go, oh, hang on, what about me? So you're left with the other one again, and then you're going to change sides to Brian.
Right.
Well, it's in his name, isn't it? Subtle shift in the, shift of allegiance. So he is disloyalty personified, which is to say he's the personification of only being out for himself in every single scene. I love it. It's fantastic. I'm having so much fun.
We're almost sort of on the road to the humours, really, aren't we? Comic characters who are just living by what their nominative determinism makes them do. Okay, we are very much at the end of the session. We've done 5 scenes. Final thoughts, really, from the room, relatively swiftly. Who wants to go in first before I just start choosing you at random? The play so far, look of horror on Aliki makes me immediately pick her. Final thoughts. The story so far. How are we enjoying the play? Any thoughts about things to add, take away, do for future, or questions for the future? Where do you think it's going?
I don't know. I suppose it's going for a big confrontation in front of King Alexander, but yeah, it's fun. I'm going to echo Sarah at the beginning and say I don't see anything terribly deep here, but I think we can enjoy ourselves, and that's what it's all about. It's about all I've got to say.
Excellent. Helen, final thoughts?
I'm having trouble remembering which is which, just by the names. It's okay when one of them speaks because I can remember who's reading them. But I have to keep mentally pinning a white shield and a gold shield on them.
You know, the playwright has made a deliberate choice to give them visual signifiers, and I think that's really very helpful.
And I'm sure that on stage, this will never be a problem, but it is a problem when you're reading.
Yeah. Yes, Alan, final thought.
It's working better voiced than I was expecting from having looked extensively at the script. I do take the point that I think signifiers would have been useful for the two knights, just to try and keep it clear, and certainly on stage that will be necessary. But I mean, it's moving at a fair pace.
Yeah, I do think, you know, the names are deliberately, as Lynn said earlier, I think, you know, names are deliberately similar, but the play has solved that as an issue by simply making sure that even if they are also similar in character, which we've already decided they're sort of not, but they sort of are, but they're given shields, they're given colour coding, they're given something so that the audience definitely has something to latch onto. So the playwright is clever so-and-so, whoever they are. Sarah, final thought.
Yeah, I think this playwright is a clever so-and-so. I'm loving this, actually, I have to say. It's daft, but it's clever daft, actually. There's a lot of stuff in it which I think is intentional. It's very sprightly, it's bouncing along, and it's an absolute hoot. And I personally cannot wait for the battle with the serpent. I'm dying to see how that turns out, because I think it's going to be hilarious.
Lois, final thought.
Yeah, it's already set up an extremely complicated plot, which, as far as I can see, is going to get even more complicated. And in fact, at one point, I really thought, I mean, about 2 or 3 scenes back, that it was going to go in the direction of the Servant of Two Masters, because I think there was a moment when Supple's ship was actually working for both those guys at once.
Well, there's still room. There might be 3 by the end by tomorrow, because he's off to Brian.
Or 4 if with Alexandra.
Yeah. Everyone. Lynn, final thought.
Yeah, I need to go back and look at some of my early modern stuff, like when was Fairy Queen written and things like that. But the sense I'm getting from this text is that it is extremely subversive. That we're undermining chivalry, and we're undermining the whole idea of knighthood, and wherein does knighthood consist? Is it, you know, by the way, everyone, it's imaginary, it's not real. It's just, undermining the whole medieval chivalry tradition, which still had quite a bit of traction in the early modern period. So yeah, I'm really interested in the subversiveness of this text.
That leaves Alexandra. Final thought.
Yes, I agree with the general thoughts. I feel as though it's silly, and it's not necessarily the sort of entertainment that I necessarily would gravitate towards when presented with other options, based on subject matter or based on, you know. But once you actually start hearing it, and it's so cleverly structured, and it's so tightly wound in terms of how the narrative develops, and how much change happens in how little text, that it's actually a lot of, I think it would be a lot of fun to watch and to create, to put on. I feel like there's lots of things you could find to bring out of the text in a very small amount of language or of time. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of it and to more of that, hopefully.
Excellent. My final thought is very much the further we've gone into this. I think Lynn's absolutely right about taking apart these romances, these chivalric romances, and it's reminding me of what Peele does with the Old Wives' Tale. With other fairy tales and other storytelling ideas, and much more overtly spoofing in ways, or at least more meta ways than this is doing. This is, perhaps tongue-in-cheek, but it's not really doing too many meta devices to take apart the conventions, though it might be subversive. And it's an interesting thought that even if it's not by Peele, but Peele may have fed off this in thoughts when it came to coming up with that play a few years later. I quite like that, especially if it's in repertoire with this. They are complementary plays. I definitely think I'll be putting that in the links with our first look at Old Wives' Tale, because I think there's an interesting complementarity between these two texts. I'm starting to think back to other Queen's Men plays, to King Lear, which has a fairy tale-ish quality to it, even though it's based on a much more solid source. So yeah, I'm finding all sorts of interesting repertoire-y kind of overlaps that I'm interested in, especially in terms of what do you do with this, how do you program this in the future. I'm really interested in the idea of, you could do a season of fairy tale shows, and this would fit into that logic and fits into that playlist sort of category and that sort of box set territory. So I'm really excited about this. I'm absolutely delighted that we've started it. We've got 3 more sessions, ladies and gentlemen of Tomb. We will be coming back to this tomorrow when we're going to meet Brian. And on that note, all that remains is to thank all the contributors today and say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.